What's up guys, this is Evan with Backwoods. We're excited to bring 3rd Gen Tacoma into our product line. Today we're going to walk through an installation of our new full protection bumper. It's a lightweight hybrid design. It only weighs 80 pounds, but we use a steel winch cradle and an aluminum outer shell. Alright, before we get started, I'd like to go over what you're going to get and what you're going to need to do the install. So when you unbox it, you'll see the bumper on these foam pads with the steel winch cradle, the aluminum outer shell, and you'll get a hardware kit. Relatively simple in this case. You're going to need a socket set and a wrench set, pretty basic. Impacts are nice to use as well, and some type of cutting tool, either a grinder or the little oscillating multi-tool, which is my favorite, and then a trim tool for removing the plastic. Today we're going to install the Pathfinder amber spotlights and a winch. Okay, first step is removing the grill. It's just 2 screws and 2 of the little plastic push pins. Next, we're going to take off the plastic bumper cover, and it's just a mixture of some of these plastic push rivets and some more 10mm screws. Okay, next we have to partially remove the fender flares far enough to uninstall the bumper cover. And it's really just held on with some really tight plastic push pins. That should be far enough for now. Now we should be able to just get the bumper cover off, and it's snapped in along this line. If your truck has factory fog lights, don't forget to unplug and disconnect the wiring harness. Okay, next we've got a few of the plastic components behind the bumper. Alright, with the plastic out of the way, you can now see your wimpy factory front bumper. You can take this off all in one piece if you use a wrench, but I'm going to use an impact and just take it off in 2 or 3 pieces. It's a 14mm socket. Okay, these next 6 nuts are the only ones that you need to keep for reinstallation of the winch cradle. Okay, this is an optional step, but for tire clearance, we're going to go ahead and remove these little frame extensions with a 17mm socket. It's also going to be the tow hook for the passenger side. These splash guards may need to be trimmed depending on what winch you run. We're going to go ahead and take them off for now, then if we need to trim them, we'll do that when we put them back on. It's just one of the little plastic push pins and then it snaps in. Alright, now for the fun part. The first step of the actual installation is the winch cradle. The winch cradle acts as your attachment point to the frame and also your shackle mounts. I like to rest it on my knee. It's a pretty simple install. It's actually the heaviest part of the whole bumper. You could reuse the hardware that originally held the bumper on. The holes are slotted, so you can adjust the bumper left to right. For now, just center it. You can access these later if you need to adjust the bumper left or right at all after the install is done. A ratchet wrench would make this a lot easier, but it's just a few turns. Depending on what winch you run and whether or not you decide to remote mount your solenoid, you may need to move this cross member out of the way. In our case, I think we're going to be able to keep the cross member, but we're going to remove this support. Again, not necessary, but I think in our case, because of this specific winch, this is going to be the best route. So we're going to temporarily take off this cross brace. It's just another 10mm nut. There it goes. Before we make our first cut, we're going to go ahead and take the lights, wiring harness, and little black plastic substructure out of the bumper. Alright, next we'll get ready to mark where we're going to cut. Okay, it's time to mark for our cut. Now at the end of the day, you want about a 1/4 inch gap between the bumper and the OEM bumper plastic. So this first mark may result in it being a little long, but it's a safe point. We're going to mark from the bottom of this slot over to where the radius begins on the original light cutout. And then we're just going to use a flexible straight edge. I've got a piece of cardboard here. A flexible straight edge to mark between those 2 points. I've done this both with the grinder with the cutoff wheel and with the oscillating multi-tool. This is my preference. Okay, it's time for a test fit. So we've got the bumper cover cut. We like the way it looks. Now we need to match the fender flare. So again, you may touch this up a second time, but for now I'm going to use my same piece of cardboard as a flexible straight edge and use it to mark that line that's straight across. So this black plastic piece is what holds the edge of the bumper cover on. You'll notice we took it off to trim the fender flare. It's got just a little bit that hangs off underneath. We need to trim that off as well. Okay, so we finished the cut, the test fit of the plastic. We may have to touch that up one more time, but now we're ready to install the bumper. And earlier we said we'll probably trim these splash guards, and that's going to be the case. Right through here below this last clip, we'll just trim the bottom part off. And then just repeat on the other side. Okay, with everything trimmed, now it's time to put the bumper on. Now we've left the bumper cover a little loose. We haven't put all the little plastic rivets back in it yet. That's just in case we have to trim it some more. But we're definitely ready to go ahead and make sure the bumper looks good on it. Okay, we've got the bumper loosely installed. We checked our gap. We did go ahead and make one small cut over here just to even it up a little bit. But we've basically got the gap we like. So now we're going to take the factory bumper cap off one more time, put the edge trim on it, and then we'll do the final install, adjust the bumper exactly where it needs to be, and then we'll install the fair lead and the lights. At this point, we've tightened the bumper down, finished installing the winch, put the edge trim on the bumper cap. Now all we have to do is finish installing the bumper cap, trim the wheel liners, and install the fog lights. Okay, before you finish your install, you're going to want to cut off this excess wheel well liner. You can use the same tool that we've been using, the oscillating tool. You can use a little box knife, but I think the easiest thing is a pair of snips. And I've just kind of eyeballed a line from the bottom of the frame rail up to the bottom edge of the bumper diagonally. And that's really just up to you wherever you want to cut it. And we'll tuck the excess back in behind the bumper. All right, last step is to reinstall the grille. That concludes the installation of the 3rd Gen Tacoma full protection front bumper. Just to recap, we took off the grille, the factory bumper cap, and the factory bumper components. We marked the factory bumper cap for the cut. We installed the winch cradle, the winch, and then the aluminum bumper. Then we reinstalled the grille and the rest of the factory components and the lighting. If you guys have any more questions or any comments, reach out to us at backwoodsadventuremods.com.